y'all. We're here to answer like a quick viewer question. We
Yeah.
got this after our last episode, episode 5, which was about the relationship buckets. And a viewer has asked us some questions that we kind of want to answer for y'all because they were really good questions. So, the first thing that our viewer asked, she said, what happens when there's like an imbalance in your bucket alignment? I know for a fact I've definitely been there in the dating world where I felt maybe I was feeling more attracted than they were, or they were feeling more attracted than I was. So, like, what do you think?
So that's natural, right? And I think that's where it's all about communication. And the cool thing about this whole thing is it, puts you in a situation where you're consistently, intentionally communicating about what's working, what's not working, why, where we align, where we don't align. And it's just a conversation. It's just that simple. And the cool thing is, once you have that conversation, there's no like, someone having expectations of you that you didn't know,
Hmm.
or someone wondering why certain things aren't connecting within the dynamic, and thinking maybe something's wrong with them or etc. It's like, let's talk about it. And the cool thing is, let's lean in heavy on the areas where we have that medium to high alignment. And when we notice there's low alignment, eliminate any expectations or desires around that and just focus on the areas that we do align in.
I will say, I feel like some people go with that better than others. Some people are not as, they haven't like internalized this in the same way that like you have or I have. And so
Mhm.
sometimes it can sting for sure.
Definitely.
If somebody is feeling like there's imbalance, they could feel hurt. So I think it's important to definitely approach these conversations with empathy and
Yes.
compassion
Yes.
as much as possible. Um, but sometimes it's still going to sting, and it could actually end things in for you. Sometimes it could end the transition, the relationship, but at least you were honest. I think
Mhm.
the another question that the viewer was asking that I think is pretty relevant here is, when is this conversation happening? Like, when are you having the bucket conversation?
Right from the start.
Right, all the
Y-
time.
Yeah, right from the start. And I know this is a totally different paradigm than we're used to. But again, it's about, if you want, or I'll say this, we've heard this saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. So this, you know, theory is all about creating better results, right? And you just mentioned it can sting, it can hurt when you recognize misalignments, right?
Hmm.
However, it's better to recognize those things earlier than later. And
Definitely.
then you're kind of like lingering in a relationship that is no longer serving you or the other person. But I've seen it happen over and over. I'm sure all of you have as well. So it's about facing reality and being honest and communicating.
And the last part of the viewer question was in the podcast episode, we kind of talked about this idea of like building relationships from scratch. And
Yeah.
she kind of was like, are you really starting from scratch? Because something had to draw you in.
Yeah.
So, like, are you really starting from scratch? So, like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I appreciated her bringing that up in that way because no, you're not starting from scratch, right? There's always something that, creates that initial spark. And it could be, we were online and I saw you writing a comment about a book. And I'm like, I read that book. And that just all of a sudden like brought me closer into your sphere and opened up possibilities. Or in a
Mm.
lot of instances, I just like the way you look and I'm curious and that sparks that initial attraction, that initial interest. Or we're in a parenting group, I'm in the parenting groups and I see someone that shares similar parenting values and I think they're cute. So it's always some initial spark
Yeah.
that gets things going.
I love that. Like, I love that social media allows us to have that, like, other types of sparks other than just physical attraction. Because, like you said, I might see your comment.
Yeah.
I might see something you post, and I'm like, ooh, now the spark is more your personality. And that, I think, is leaning more into compatibility than desirability. So I'm always here for that.
Yeah, or we could share community. We could be in similar
Yeah.
social circles, and I just notice things about you that over time just build up that initial interest. So there's always an initial spark.
Yeah. And if you're really interested in this bucket stuff, we have actually launched a program recently. We launched a coaching and training program for your relationships. And we talk about the buckets in depth. So if the buckets are like calling you and you're like, "Ooh, I'm so interested in this," let us know. Go check
So
us out at
No, well, go-growdialogue.com and there'll be a link in the description.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. See y'all next time. We'll definitely be back with these little short
Send us
videos
your
again.
questions too, so we can answer
Yes.
your questions as well.
Drop your comments. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. Send us a DM anywhere you see us. If you catch us on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere other platform, we're happy to answer your questions. This is really fun.
Peace, y'all.
Bye, y'all.